Good day, everyone. Now we have our next topic, which is how to construct a teacher-made test. You might be wondering why we need to study this, the construction of a teacher-made test, and what made teacher-made test different from other tests. Of course, when we say a teacher-made test, it was made or it will be made by the teacher for his or her own students. uh, Not a commercialized one, but it is intended for the testing the performance of the students. And there are several teacher-made tests. Uh, okay, what do we expect to learn from this topic? We try to analyze the different types of teacher-made tests, construct different types of teacher-made tests, and value the guidelines in constructing the different teacher-made tests. Now, the nature of teacher-made tests, normally, of course, it will be prepared and administered for testing classroom achievement, evaluating the method of teaching, and adapting the teacher and other curricular programs of the school. Now, this teacher-made test they are not commercialized. They are intended only for the student, for us to find out their performance. Now, there are different types of teacher-made tests. We have the first one, which is the alternate choice test. Most common forms of objective test, where you will find variation of the popular true or false, yes or no, agree and disagree, and so on and so forth. Now, in creating alternate choice test, we have to consider several guidelines. First one, avoid using negative statement and double negatives. Example, coronavirus disease is non-infectious. That's the correct one. But if you will be saying coronavirus disease is not non-infectious, there is already a double negative. Okay? Now be clear and concise. Test needs to be valid, reliable, and useful. Incorrect. Test needs to be valid, reliable, and useful, although it would require great amount of time and effort to ensure the test possesses these test characteristics. So you don't have to make it too long. You don't have to make it too profound, but rather you can go direct to the point. Make it clear and concise. Do not give a hint in the body of the question. Example, the correct one will be the Philippines gained its independence in the year 1898. But if you will saying this, the Philippines gained its independence in 1890 and therefore celebrated its centennial year in 2000. You are giving already a clue. So avoid giving a hint. You have to limit its statement to only one central idea. For correct example, all spiders have exoskeletons. But it will be incorrect when you say all spiders have exoskeletons and only prey on insects. So do not include any other idea, but focus only on one central idea. Avoid using words always, never, often, and other adverbs that tends to be either always true or always false. Example, this year Christmas falls on a Sunday. It will be incorrect when you say Christmas always falls on Sunday because it is a Sabbath day. So that is incorrect. Avoid using unfamiliar vocabulary that can create only chaos on the part of the students or confusion. So correct one, large destructive fire is a source of forest destruction in the US. But if we will just be using configuration as a source of forest destruction in the US, which is not that clear. So make it a point that the unfamiliar vocabulary should not be included. Avoid also using negatively stated statements. Example, Henry Otley Beyer formulated the migration truth. So that is positive. But refrain from saying Henry Otley Beyer did not formulate the migration truth. So avoid using negative statement. And must not include an opinion statement also. Correct one. Part of the constitutions of the Philippines and Malaysia are the same. Okay, but it will be incorrect when you say the Philippine Constitution is better than the Malaysian Constitution. That will be opinionated. Okay, what about the multiple choice? It is a form of an objective assessment in which respondents are asked to select one correct answer from the choices offered as a list. Guidelines for creating multiple choice. First one, eliminate excessive wording and irrelevant information. Example number one, which of the following is a criticism of Sheldon Churio's personality? So you have here the choices. Okay. He failed to use an empirical approach. His research sample was improperly selected. He was influenced too much by Freudian psychoanalysis. His rating, physique, and temperament were not independent. So that's correct. But it will become incorrect when you say Sheldon developed a highly controversial theory of personality based on body type and temperament of the individual. Which of the following is a criticism of Sheldon's theory? So there are so many excessive wordings and irrelevant informations that are not included, so you have to eliminate those things. Okay, another one. You have to utilize language that even the most unskilled reader will understand, so better use familiar words. Example, according to food hysteria was caused by A. Repressed fear, B. Sexual conflicts, C. Latent tendencies, D. Unresolved feeling of fear. Now, to make it incorrect, according to Freud, the raison d'etre for hysteria. So in that case, we can say that there is a word which is not that clear to your students. So it will create confusion and they cannot understand it. Minimize the use of all of the above and none of the above. We say minimize, but doesn't mean that we do not have to use it. You can still use it. So the correct one here, we have here the options as all of the above being used, but it will become incorrect if both of them, all of the above and none of the above, will be used. Okay, avoid irrelevant cues such as grammatical structure, well-known word association, or connection between the stem and the correct answer. Now, the example, the water dam is built depends on, okay, only the height, the water behind the dam, the strength of reinforcing the wall, or the waves of the water. It will become incorrect if you just included the term height. The height of a water dam is built depends on the height of the water behind the dam, which is definitely, you've got already the connection on it. We have seen already the connection between the stem and the correct answer. Grammatical structure, sometimes when we are using a, and the, an article, it will also give a clue to which should be the correct answer with the options. No? So refrain from using such irrelevant clues. Put alternatives in logical order. When you say logical, that means it can be ascending or descending order, or it may be chronological. It depends on the number. Now, according to the 2000 census, approximately what percentage of the Filipino population is of Hispanic or Spanish descent? So you will see the arrangement: 2%, 9%, 25%, 39%. But it will be incorrect if you rumble the number, neither descending or ascending, but try to be sure it should be an ascending or descending order. Reduce the length of the alternatives by moving as many words as possible to the stem. So instead of using so many words as a measure, a measure, a measure, so you just make it a point that the mean is the measure of average, midpoint, most popular score, or dispersion of the score. So do not make it a point that more of your or many words that are being repeatedly said or repeatedly used, you just include it in your stem. What about the fill in the blanks? It consists of phrase, sentence, or paragraph with a blank space where a student provides the missing word. First, be definite enough so that only one correct answer is possible. Let's say the exact number of moons Jupiter has is blank, but then we say Jupiter has a blank moons. Okay? And also avoid over-mutilated statements. Correct one. Anton van Leeuwenhoek was the first to view the blank under the microscope. But when we say blank was the first to view the blank under the blank, it doesn't give sense anymore. So that was mutilated statement. Ideally, the blanks for the completion type should be placed on the end or near the end. Do not place it at the beginning because you better use an identification if ever you will be placing it at the beginning. So you can have the blank either in the middle or at the end. Okay? Indicate the unit to be used when the response requires the unit. Sample, if the mango weighs 250 grams, 10 mangoes should weigh blank grams. So without the presence of the unit, that will be incomplete and it will create also confusion on the part of the students. Ensure that all blanks are equal length and correspond to the length of the desired responses. Sometimes the student will think if the blank is somewhat a bit long, your answer will also be long. The blank will be also lengthy. And if the blank is so short, maybe the answer will also be short. So just make it a point that all the blanks should be equal in length. What about in matching type? There are two lines of items are presented in student to select an item from one list that closely relates to an item from the second list. So may column tayo, may choices. What are the guidelines? Choices have complete names and the choices are organized. The length of the statement is consistent. Topic of choices are lined in one topic. Indicate the basis of choices and the responses. The number of choices are kept short. And the matching type test falls only in one topic only. So meaning, if it is a matching type, the longer or the lengthy word should be placed in the first column. And those responses should only be short. Now your option should also be arranged in alphabetical order or it can be in chronological order. Make it more homogeneous by nature, meaning the topic that is to be included will be somewhat related to one another. If it's all about the events, everything should be events. If it is more on dates, everything should be dates. Okay. Now at least with every five stems, you will have one additional option. Okay. 5 is to 6, 10 is to 12. Okay. You try to make your choices short. Look at this example. Okay, so in column A, you will notice that we have here longer statements being written. In column B, we have just choices of different persons. All of them are persons. That is homogeneous by nature now. Okay. But the point is, if you will try to look at it, the column B is not arranged in alphabetical order. Try to look at Immanuel Kant. So in that case, we need to transfer Immanuel Kant in the proper position to make it more in alphabetical order. And look at the option, the letter. The option should be capital A, capital B, capital C, capital D, and so on and so forth. You've got only one additional option. But if you will try to make your matching type with the 10 items, so make your options as 12. Okay, look at this one. This is incorrect. Very confusing on the part of the students. Okay, and we have here the last one, which is the essay. It is a test item which requires a response composed by the examinee. Usually, it can be in the form of one or more sentences. Okay? By nature that no single response or pattern of responses can be listed as correct. The accuracy and quality of which can be judged subjectively only by one skilled or informed in the subject. So an essay can be in a brief or extended, an open-ended questions. It depends, no? So for short answers, the solution for any problem, and if it requires several paragraphs, that will be considered an extended. Now, when you are creating an essay, you have to make your directions clear and specific. So let's have an example. If you say compare the Democratic and Republican parties, that's quite broad. So to make it more clear and specific, compare the current policies of Democratic and Republican Party with regard to the role of government in private business. And try to support your statement with examples. Now you have to allow ample time for the completion of essays. So just a time allotment for each question. Let's say, for example, we define cirrhosis of fever, that's for 5 minutes. Briefly explain the medical management for 10 minutes. And explain the nursing management of patient with cirrhosis of fever, that will be 10 minutes. So with the absence of the number of minutes allotted for each question, um, might be the student can focus only in one topic and can consume a lot of time over there and wasn't able to answer the other questions. Okay, and write how many points is equivalent to each question. So in that case, the student will know what's the value or what's the weight of each question, and they can explain fully depending on the weight being given for each number. And as a teacher, we have to explain also the scoring text to the student before the examination. Okay, so we have the example rubrics, the different criteria with different level of performance, and that is in the form of analytic scoring rubrics. There are some major considerations preparing teacher-made tests. First one is the validity. It refers to the quality of tests which measure what is supposed to measure. So its correctness, its accuracy, that takes to validity. And reliability, if the quality of test produces scores that are not affected by a chance, it is consistent, it is dependable, and it is stable. So validity and reliability, both of them are meaningful measurements that should be taken into account in attempting to evaluate the status of progress toward any objective or any district, school, or classroom has. When we talk of validity and reliability, they are always related to one another. So it is, you cannot say that the test is reliable if it is not valid. But we can say that if the test is valid, it is always reliable. Thank you so much, and hope you learned something from our discussion in relation to test construction and also construction of the different types of tests, of course with the TOS, which is the table of specification. With this, have a good day.